A man spent the whole night fighting a stranger, and by morning, his name, his destiny, and his future had changed forever. But who was this mysterious man? And why would God allow one of his chosen servants to wrestle until dawn? Stay with me, because this is one of the most powerful stories of faith, fear, and transformation ever told. The desert wind blew softly across the land of Canaan as a weary traveler looked toward the horizon. His name was Jacob, a man whose entire life had been marked by struggle. Before Jacob was even born, his story had already begun. Inside his mother's womb, he and his twin brother Esau fought with each other. The struggle was so intense that their mother, Rebekah, sought God's guidance. The Lord told her that two nations were in her womb and that the older son would serve the younger. When the twins were born, Esau came out first, covered with red hair. But right behind him came Jacob, gripping his brother's heel as if he refused to let go. Because of this, he was named Jacob, meaning heel grabber or one who takes another's place. As the boys grew, they became very different. Esau loved hunting and spending time outdoors, while Jacob preferred the quietness of home. One day, Esau returned from hunting, exhausted and starving. Jacob had prepared a pot of stew. Desperate with hunger, Esau begged for food. Jacob saw an opportunity and offered him the meal in exchange for his birthright, the special inheritance reserved for the firstborn son. Without thinking, Esau agreed. Years later, when their father Isaac became old and nearly blind, Jacob and his mother devised another plan. Isaac wanted to bless Esau before his death, but Rebekah remembered God's promise that the younger son would be greater. She prepared a meal and dressed Jacob in Esau's clothing. She even covered Jacob's hands and neck with goat skins because Esau was hairy. Jacob entered his father's tent. "Who are you, my son?" Isaac asked. Jacob replied, "I am Esau, your firstborn." Though Isaac was suspicious, he touched Jacob's hands and smelled his clothing. Believing him to be Esau, he gave Jacob the blessing. Moments later, the real Esau arrived. The truth was revealed, and Esau was devastated. His sorrow quickly turned into anger. "I will kill Jacob," he vowed. Fearing for Jacob's life, Rebekah sent him away to live with her brother Laban. Jacob traveled far from home, leaving behind everything he knew. One night, exhausted from his journey, he lay down to sleep with a stone for his pillow. As he slept, he had a remarkable dream. He saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. At the top stood the Lord himself. God promised Jacob that he would be with him wherever he went and would one day bring him back to this land. When Jacob awoke, he was filled with awe. "Surely the Lord is in this place," he said. He called that place Bethel, meaning house of God. Jacob continued his journey and arrived at the home of his uncle Laban. There he met a beautiful young woman named Rachel. The moment Jacob saw her, he fell deeply in love. Laban agreed to let Jacob marry Rachel if he worked for him for 7 years. Jacob gladly accepted. The 7 years passed quickly because of his love for Rachel. Finally, the wedding day arrived. But that night, Laban deceived Jacob. Instead of Rachel, he gave him his older daughter, Leah. When morning came, Jacob was shocked. The deceiver had been deceived. Laban agreed to give him Rachel as well, but Jacob had to work another 7 years. Over time, Jacob's family grew. He had 12 sons and a daughter, and his wealth increased greatly. Yet despite his prosperity, Jacob longed to return home. After 20 years away, God told him it was time to go back. Jacob obeyed. But there was one problem. Esau, The brother he had betrayed was still waiting on the other side. As Jacob journeyed toward home, he heard terrifying news. Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. Fear gripped his heart. Had Esau come for revenge? Would he destroy everything Jacob had built? Jacob prayed desperately, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, save me from my brother." He divided his family and possessions into groups, hoping that if one group was attacked, the others might escape. Then he sent gifts ahead to Esau: goats, sheep, camels, cattle, and donkeys, in an attempt to soften his brother's heart. That night, Jacob sent his wives, children, and servants across the river. For the first time in many years, he was completely alone. The darkness surrounded him. The sounds of the night echoed through the valley. Jacob's mind raced with fear. Would tomorrow be his last day alive? Suddenly, a man appeared. Without warning, the stranger seized Jacob. The two men began to wrestle. It was a fierce struggle. They wrestled through the darkness. Minute after minute, hour after hour, dust rose from the ground as they fought. Neither would surrender. Jacob was exhausted, yet he refused to let go. The stranger realized that Jacob would not quit. Then, with a single touch, he struck Jacob's hip. Immediately, Jacob's hip was dislocated. Pain shot through his body. Still, Jacob held on. The stranger said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But Jacob replied with determination, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Then the man asked, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. The question seemed simple, but it carried deep meaning. By saying his name, Jacob admitted who he had been all his life: a deceiver, a struggler, a man who relied on his own schemes. Then the stranger spoke words that changed everything. "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." At that moment, Jacob realized he had been wrestling with a divine messenger, an angel sent by God, and in a mysterious way, he had encountered God himself. Overwhelmed, Jacob asked, "Please tell me your name." But the stranger did not answer. Instead, he blessed him there. As the sun rose, the mysterious figure disappeared. Jacob stood alone. He was injured. He walked with a limp. But he was no longer the same man. He named the place Peniel, saying, "I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been spared." As the morning light spread across the land, Jacob looked into the distance. Esau was approaching with 400 men. The moment of truth had arrived. Jacob limped forward. Every step reminded him of the night's struggle. Then something unexpected happened. Esau ran toward him. Jacob braced himself. But instead of striking him, Esau threw his arms around his brother and embraced him. The two men wept together. Years of pain, anger, and separation melted away. God had answered Jacob's prayer. The brother he feared had forgiven him. Jacob realized something important. The greatest battle of his life had not been against Esau. It had been against himself. All his life he had depended on deception and human strength. But at Peniel, he learned to depend on God. He entered the night as Jacob, the deceiver. He emerged at dawn as Israel, the man transformed by God. And from Israel would come a great nation, a people through whom God's promises would continue for generations. The story of Jacob reminds us that sometimes God allows us to struggle, not to destroy us, but to change us. Sometimes our darkest nights become the place where our greatest blessings are born. Because when God changes your identity, your past no longer defines your future. Like Jacob, you may walk away with scars, but you will also walk away with a blessing that can change your life forever.